This economy would roar like a rocket if people knew what the rules were, and the rules weren't designed to slow us down.
I think now more than ever, a crisis of uncertainty.
Uncertainty.
The things we are certain of aren't so great for small business.
As a small business owner, I'm used to kind of getting the dirt kicked on me.
Obamacare is probably one of the biggest job killers that we have in America today as it relates to small business.
Obamacare is driving an enormous amount of underemployment.
I've sent in about 50 more resumes, but the only thing I've been able to come up with is this one part-time job.
I've sent out a few resumes a week, and I've been at it since the end of law school, which was 2.5 years ago.
I'm actually working as a hostess in a diner and doing a bunch of part-time jobs until something full-time comes up.
What I would like to see is lower taxes and less regulation.
I think the biggest thing Washington can do to help me is to get out of my way.
We're still going to work hard, and we're going to continue to do great things.
Companies across the nation are open for business, but they are facing an uphill battle. From a struggling and uncertain economy to the rising cost of Obamacare, American businesses are working overtime, many just to stay afloat. So, how are they overcoming the challenges? For decades, Starbucks has offered every single employee health care. Starbucks Chairman and CEO Howard Schultz is here to tell you how Obamacare is impacting health care for his employees now. But first, a great group of extremely successful business owners join us. Pro Computer Service President Anthony Mangialuzzo, Forbes Media Chairman and Editor-in-Chief Steve Forbes, Gilt CEO Michelle Peluso, and TalkPoint CEO Nick Billetta. Steve, first to you. First of all, to those who don't know Forbes, how big is Forbes? How many employees?
We're a little under 1,000. We've really downsized in this media web age. Our website is flourishing, but the print side is not nearly as big as it used to be. So we've been going through two storms. One is the economic storm, the Obamacare storm, and what's happening with the web. So our whole business model has just been thrown out. And so we've gone through a turbulent time. So we're a smaller company, but today we're now a very profitable company. Thank goodness.
You say turbulent. Is it still uncertain, though? Because it's a lot easier to do well in a business if you have some idea of what's going on. Are things certain enough with Obamacare for you now? Or
no. We're going to have to make a decision, as other businesses are going to have to make a decision a year from now, if we ever get the rules of the game, in determining what kind of plans we can offer. We've had very generous plans in the past. Up right now, for instance, we give our people $2,500 a year cash that they can use for their health care. And if they don't spend it, they get to keep it. So they have an incentive to keep costs down. We don't know if that's going to survive by the time it gets to the regulatory maw in Washington. We've always tried to give people not only a generous plan, but give them incentives to shop smartly. We don't know if we can do that anymore.
Michelle, how big is your business, and what is it?
So Gilt is in the business of inspiring consumers every single day to find that thing you desire, that thing you want, and offering great experiences. We have about 1,100 employees around the world, and about 1,000 of those are here in the United States.
And do they have health insurance?
Yes, they do.
Is Obamacare presenting any sort of challenges for your business?
Well, I mean, certainly there's been a lot to understand, and still, as Steve rightly points out, stuff that's emerging. For us, it hasn't had a major impact on our plan costs for 2014. We offer plans for all of our employees who work more than 30 hours. There are some things that we've had to evolve, as you might expect, but it hasn't actually been a major cost. But we're watching closely to see what's going to be enacted as part of 14.
Well, there's been a delay, at least for big business. Has that helped you out, or is that just sort of delaying the uncertainty for you?
You know, I think this idea that what's most impactful to us is we're always having to look. We're trying to hire the best, most talented people in the digital space, in these highly competitive markets like New York City. And so for us, it's really about not only how are we going to face this, but what are other employers doing? So how do we stay competitive? That's what we're waiting to see as it emerges in 2014.
Mm-hmm. Nick, how big is your company?
We have about 100 employees right now.
So you're over the 50 threshold.
Absolutely.
There's nothing you can't shave it down a little bit to get down to 49. So what does this mean for you? What does Obamacare? First of all, what is your business?
Well, we're in the webcasting business. We provide technology and services for online communications. So mostly corporate communications. So we have a lot of enterprise clients. We have 100 employees. We do provide healthcare today. We just got our notice this week that our healthcare premium is going up about 20% next year.
It went up 19% the last year?
19% last year, 20% this year.
So is that sort of predictable, or is that like the fact that it's going up 20%, that's what it went up 19 last year,
right.
Up 20, or are you like horrified that it's now like it's jumping up this high?
Well, it's kind of interesting because we looked at our budget, and behind payroll and technology, which is what we do, is infrastructure for IT and web services, healthcare is our third largest line item expense. We spend more now as a company with 100 employees on healthcare than we spend on real estate, marketing, or R&D.
Is that the same for Forbes? Would that be your third? Is that your third biggest expense?
It's the top four. Obviously, salaries, paper is a big one for us, and other expenses, but healthcare has been a big one. And our growth in healthcare has been less than our peers, precisely because we give our people incentives to save. We give them money, and we end up saving money. But again, we don't know if we're going to be able to do that. Maybe we'll have to give our people a certain sum of money and say, go out and see what you can find. Maybe we won't be able to provide it anymore. We just don't know. So that's a big one. We plan budgets not just for 2014, but for 2015. Where are we going to be?
Well, and also at a 20% annual growth rate, in 4 years, it'll double. So 3 or 4 years from now, it's going to be larger than my technology spend. And we're an internet-based cloud company.
That's
I
a
think
lot.
that, assuming things trend in the direction they're trending now.
Anthony, you're a small business. How many employees do you have?
41. So looking around the table, I feel like I am the face of small business.
That's actually 41 is more than I ever had when I ran a law firm. I think 41 seems a lot, but go ahead.
Yeah, when payroll comes every other Thursday, it seems like a lot as well. And, we just had the unfortunate news with the Obamacare reported that it went up 18.25%. And some of my peers are saying I'm lucky. I know another small business with less than 15 that went up 70%. So I guess I should count my blessings, but it's a tough time, and uncertainty really is the word right now in the economy.
Well, when I see that you're so close to like the 50, I think, do you have any incentive getting over that 50? Because that's one of the thresholds, and you become big business and different considerations?
Definitely some considerations. I mean, the problem is my goal is to grow and provide a better life for my employees, for my family. And if I stopped our growth at 49, we're not reaching our potential. So I just want to dig deep and find other ways. I mean, all other businesses, all big businesses, it's a challenge we're all going to face. So I'm not stopping the growth. I'm going to keep on going and hopefully be at 1,100 or 1,000 and deal with the circumstances after that.
Make you nervous, though? As you see the prices jump up, you see the NIC's going up 20%. I mean,
we're self-insured, so it's a little bit different. But I think that, again, when we think about the overall package for employees, we have to think every day we're competing against Google and Facebook and all these others in our marketplace. So what's the environment like, and what's in our pantry, and what are the benefits employees are getting, and how much flexibility do we give them in terms of how they work. So medical benefits is obviously a critical piece of what it means to be an employee at Guild and feel excited about Guild, but there's so much more to the package that we have to do to be competitive. And so it's certainly something we think about. We watch it regularly, we're looking at this, but when if you think about where I obsess about finding and retaining the best people and doing it in a way that works for our P&L, there's just a lot of other pieces of the equation.
Do the 1,000 employees ever say when they come to, like, what kind of benefits do you have before they even? I mean, I think the job market is just so weak. The people want jobs so badly that they'll take any job and they'll take whatever health insurance you have.
Well, being under 1,000, we have to be very careful. But one of the things that, yes, we do point out our health care plan, why we think it's absolutely unique among our peers. We also point out some of the other benefits, but on things like matching in terms of a 401k and things like that, for younger people especially, they just want the job. And for people who are older, it's just not going to be that big a thing for them in terms of the assets they have. So things that mattered when we're hiring 10 or 15 years ago matter less today. They are concerned about the job.
I like that $2,500 incentive.
Yeah.
I actually like the incentive.
Right.
Do any of you do this incentive? Because
No.
I'd like that.
Right.
In previous companies I've seen it, and I think it's an incredibly innovative and successful aspect. And certainly giving people information, ideas, incentives to make better healthcare decisions is part of being a great place to work.
Do you have the sense that the White House should have listened more to business, big business, small business, in terms of developing Obamacare? Would you have suggested something that's not there that would have been like smarter?
I would say, just to jump in, I think they should start listening. I mean, listen more would mean that they're actually paying attention at all. I mean, the vital signs of the economy are there. We're not in recovery. We have a long way to go. So I would say open up the ears and get a poll of small business owners and find out what
would you have
motivates.
told them on Obamacare?
I would have told them just stay the way it was. I'm not saying the old system was great, but hearing what I'm hearing and forcing healthcare, especially in 2015 when it comes to all the business owners over 50, it's going to create a major economic impact.
We have to make sure we understand that the old way wasn't working either. I mean, to me, that's a pretty critical thing. We live in a society where we want people, to precisely your point, Anthony, to be doing better, to have more. And I think you know, I don't think Obamacare is perfect by any stretch. But and maybe there's a lot more that could have been done differently.
Like what? What would
But
you
I
have done
don't
differently?
think
What would,
the
on your
old
wish
path
list? On your wish list, how can we have made it better? So made it better for business, better for the consumer of medical care, better for doctors and nurses.
This is less to do with the Affordable Care Act and more to do with the environment in Washington. When you have one party and not another party involved, you know, I mean, just this path that we are on in general in Washington, of, you know, sort of no compromise, no going at it together, no trying to tackle problems together. I think that's concerning for the nation.
Well, you have the federal government imposing its will on an industry, and they dictated what the product will look like in this industry, line item by line item. There's 4 or 5 versions of the product, but they've dictated what it is, and then they went and mandated that every single American has to buy it.
Yeah.
Now, if you read that script in any industry, you would say that is effectively a government takeover.
At a time when people want more choices, at a time when we find out there are hundreds of different kinds of cancers instead of a handful as we thought in the past, they want one size fits all. We couldn't do that 2,500 today because it would go against what they think everyone should have. So instead of giving people flexibility, they put them in a straitjacket.
And the other thing is, I mean, the healthcare itself is 16 or 17% of the entire U.S. economy.
Right.
How do you get a bunch of guys on Capitol Hill that do not have business experience, that maybe are lifelong politicians? They're not writing payroll. They're not in the trenches. They're not making the tough choices. Why not open it up more?
Right. Well, it's interesting. None of us are saying we're not delivering health care or providing it for our employees. We're all just figuring out how we do it going forward and how we manage it.
And one of the things they could have done is they don't believe competition works.
Right.
But why not remove barriers to have nationwide shopping for health insurance? I live in New Jersey. We have crazy regulations. I can buy almost a similar policy in Pennsylvania, half the price I can in New Jersey. I can buy a house in Pennsylvania, can't buy insurance.
Right.
Why not have nationwide shopping? Have hundreds of companies compete, and then you'll start to see some real innovation.
Well, that was discussed. Why wasn't that part of this? I mean, what was the obstacle to that?
Ideology.
Agreed.
They
just shopping over just the shopping aspect? I mean, the whole idea of the exchange is so you can go on and look at the market, and and there aren't a lot of choices. But that was the whole point of the market exchange, a market.
But it's a government takeover, right? When the government is dictating the product and the features in that product, and they're mandating that we as citizens have to buy it,
and
that's a government takeover.
Narrow networks and the like, instead of a true exchange where you get all different kinds of products. To get on this thing, it's got to be in a very narrow range.
Look, it's not perfect, but I still believe we have to do something. The old way wasn't working.
Oh, I think we all agree on that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but it's interesting you're all providing medical care, and I actually think that, I mean, everybody did think the system was broken. I mean, it was a nightmare. There were, I've been
absolutely.
I've sat in hospitals, and I've seen, how tough it is for people.
That's right, and I've, lived in other places where it's a lot easier.
Well, the whole model of a hospital has got to be revised.
Well, they talk about things like, that the oversubscription to emergency rooms, people going in like with a sinus infection to an emergency room, even something like, why not put a 24/7 walk-in clinic right next door?
Mm-hmm.
So that, if you show up with a sinus infection at 2 o'clock in the morning, you don't go to the emergency room, you go to the hospital.
State regs allowed real competition. You'd see more of what Walgreens and CVS is doing.
Those have been some great models.
Walk-in clinics.
Right.
And even teledocs. We offer to our guild employees starting in January the ability to video with a teledoc and to get a great resolution. And I think there is innovation happening, and to me that's exciting.
Panel, stay with us. We've got to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to ask you to look into your crystal ball. What do you see happening for jobs, business, and economy next year? Is the picture getting brighter or gloomier for Americans? Our business experts will answer that question next. Companies across the nation may be open for business, but they are facing lots of uncertainty. Thanks a lot to Washington. We're still waiting for Congress and the President to come up with a budget and a long-term debt ceiling solution as well. So what does the next year hold for American companies? We're back with our business panel. Steve, how are we doing? What's the prediction?
Sluggishness. It's better than it was 3 or 4 years ago, but given the severity of the fall that we had in 08 and 09, we should have done much better, at least coming out of the box. Instead, we're going about 2%. We should be doing 4 or 5%. And you see trouble brewing again in Europe and other parts of the world. So it's not just us. We're all in the quicksand.
Michelle.
Well, I mean, I think, so before Guilt, I was Chief Marketing and Digital Officer at Citigroup, and we used to do a lot of work on confidence surveys and the correlation with economic growth. And people don't like uncertainty. They don't like reading headlines of uncertainty. And I think that's been the plague here, is that it's, every time we seem to have something moving in the right direction, we set ourselves back. And a lot of it is caused by Washington. So, I mean, I feel like when you look at underlying rates, consumer optimism generally has been a bit better, certainly, than it was. Saving rates are generally a little bit better. I think some of the raw ingredients, the job market is a little bit better. The question is that going to start, catalyzing demand and catalyzing
real estate's
consumer
coming
growth?
back a little bit
Yeah,
now,
that's
so
right.
people
So
feel
there's
more
some signs.
confident that their equity in their home is there.
Yep.
So we see a little bit more confidence.
I agree. I see it going slow. At the end of the day, if small business owners are scared, they're not going to hire. They're going to cut things. And if businesses, and especially small business in this country, are not hiring, there's no way we're going to grow.
Well, we're adapting, right? Like this year is
Yeah.
the first year that we've really started to outsource. We hired a bunch of 1099 employees. We've offshored software development for the first time. We've outsourced some of our tech support. The idea is even though we're at 100 employees, we're over the threshold, you still have to be very conscious. There's a heavy burden to bring on a full-time employee.
But remember this too, all of my employees, starting December 1st when the new healthcare goes into effect, they're going to have less disposable income, just as I am, because we're all chipping in this. When you have less disposable income, there's less spending, and it's a currency. Cash is a currency. You got to keep it flowing.
And I agree. I think you're going to see a lot of small businesses sharing the pain with the employees. We all have three constituencies, right? We have our shareholders, we have our customers, and we have our employees, all equally important. We can't go out to the customers and just say, hey, look, I'm raising my prices because my health care went up. I wish I had that option. None of us do.
And the call you're going to get is, well, my health care went up, so I need you to lower your price.
Exactly. So we have to share that with our ownership and our shareholders and with the employees. And the idea is to strike that balance because we do have to attract talent.
All right. Well, the whole discussion started with the uncertainty. You're all talking about the uncertainty. Any sort of thoughts and wisdom of how to get Washington to give you that more certainty, to get that budget, to handle the debt, or is that just absurd to even think about that?
Yeah, I really think it starts with the president and make it very clear, maybe what he did a couple of weeks ago and saying maybe you can keep your health care plan. Maybe that's the beginning where he'll really put real compromises on the table and you start to get some agreements. Start with business taxes. There isn't a lot of consensus among Democrats and Republicans to simplify the code, reduce rates. So start with that and see if you can build momentum with that. But the president's got to make it clear he will go along with the deal even if he doesn't get everything he wants, because people are not going to put their political necks out. They think it's going to be chopped off at the White House.
You raised the tax code. There are something like 3,300 different provisions, earmarks, or however you want to characterize them. How much does the tax code really give a headache to you for making your business go?
I have to be honest, I trust the professionals. When people ask about Obamacare, the bottom line for me is I know my health care went up 18.25%. I don't think half the people, again, in Washington read it all.
You know what? I don't think there's a single person on Capitol Hill who does his or her own taxes. Not always as self-defense because you want to be able to say if something went wrong, it's your tax preparer, but also because it's so enormously complex. So I always sort of wonder what impact does it.
It's a 70,000-page document, right? The tax code. I mean, I can't even imagine that. The only thing close to that is Obamacare now with its regulations over 20,000 pages. That's just...
It sounds too big to even...
Yeah, I can't even imagine something being 70,000 pages.
But at the end of the day, we're not sitting around at Guilt thinking about what's Washington going to do to solve our problems.
I agree, absolutely.
We're not sitting there I wonder if the tax code is going to get simplified, and before I sell something to a consumer tomorrow, let me think about that. I mean, our job is to innovate every single day. That's what that's the beauty of America. That's what makes America great.
I think, though, that the sort of thinking on the other end of this is that if your business, it's enormously successful, if it's even more successful, you're going to hire a couple more people.
Right.
So to the extent that we can take the foot off your throat of something like whether if it's a complex tax code or whatever it is, and I'm not saying you should pay less, but at least make it a little easier, in terms of that helps the rest of us.
Look, it's absolutely, there's so much, that I wish Washington would do better and governments would do better, and I think it's a two-party problem. But I think the opportunity still is, how do you get better every day for your customers? How do you get better every day for your suppliers? And how do you hire when you're doing that? I mean, we're hiring in all our locations. It's important.
We need to take another quick break. Panel, we'll be right back a little later in the program. But up next, the chairman and CEO of Starbucks is here. He says Obamacare has gone off the rails, and he's here to tell you why. That's next. You see the signs on almost every corner, probably every corner, across the nation and even across the world. Individuals, small businesses, and even a giant company like Starbucks have to deal with the uncertain new challenges of healthcare. So what's the plan for Starbucks? Starbucks Chairman and CEO Howard Schultz joins us. Nice to see you, sir.
Nice to meet you. It's been a great opportunity for me to be on your show. Thank you.
Well, it's a great opportunity for me, but just sort of so the viewers have understanding, can you describe how big Starbucks is? I mean, how many employees, how many shops?
We've been in business since 1971. We have almost 20,000 stores in 62 countries. We employ 250,000 people around the world, and about 70 million customers a week come in our stores, and we were the first company in America to provide equity in the form of stock options and comprehensive health insurance to every single employee, including part-timers, and we put that in place in 1990.
All right, now that's a big deal, the part-time employees. I don't know of many companies that do that, and you have 250,000 employees. How were you able to do that under the pre-Obamacare scenario?
Well, I think this is a very important issue for almost every company today because of the Affordable Care Act, but Starbucks was way in advance of that. We recognized early on that as a company we could not exceed the expectations of our customers unless we exceeded the expectations of our people. And so as a result of that, even when we were a private company, we put in health insurance for 20 hours a week or more, and that covers about 90% of all of our employees. Now, obviously, this is an expensive benefit, but we've proven over 20 years that reducing attrition and higher level of performance, and if you look at our company's financial history, 2 years in a row of record profits and record revenue, and I put a large part of that success based on the balance between achieving profitability and a social conscience, and most importantly, sharing our success with our people and linking shareholder value to the value for our people. And you know, Greta, this is very personal for me. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in a family that lost its health insurance. We lived in federally subsidized housing, and I saw firsthand the fracturing of the American dream when my family lost health insurance, and that's the first thing I wanted to do when we started building Starbucks.
Is the new Obamacare going to have any sort of appreciable impact on Starbucks? If you've already been providing insurance to your full-time, part-time, as we march into this new era of Obamacare, how does it affect you?
Well, interestingly enough, it doesn't affect us at all because the president's, the administration put in the mandate around 30 hours a week. We already do that for people who work 20 hours a week. So ironically, Starbucks' plan is better than the plan that the president and the administration has put into law. I will say I think it's very frustrating and obviously high anxiety for people across the country in their inability to kind of navigate through the websites and the confusion. And it's really unfortunate that the strategy was really fractured by a lack of execution.
Why are you so able, as Starbucks, so able to do this and seemingly very successful, and yet I'm hearing now from people in small business as well as in excess of 50 employees and large corporations that they're really terrified and worried. But if you've been able to do it all along, what's the secret?
Well, I don't think it's any secret. I think we have always viewed our people not as a cost center, and we never viewed this benefit as an expense. We viewed it as an investment. And I think more and more companies that turn their back on their people or don't do the right thing for the communities they serve are going to be rejected by their customers. So there's no secret sauce here. This is just an investment in our people, and we have built this into the original business plan of Starbucks, and we would not be successful today around the world if we didn't provide health insurance for our people and ownership for every single employee.
But if you have a lower profit margin and you're just getting started in a business, more than 50 employees, if you have a lower profit margin, it's sort of hard to build in healthcare costs, into your business plan. And so it does put a pinch on a lot of American businesses. So I guess I'm trying to figure out why the other ones are getting pinched so.
Well, I can't speak for other businesses or small businesses. I can only tell you my story. In 1987, we had 11 stores and 100 employees and a dream to create a great company in America, and we've been able to do that. And we didn't do it on the backs of our people. We did it by sharing success with our people, and I think that model has worked for us. I'm not here to preach to any other company, but I am here to tell our story, and our story is really based on integrating the success of the company with our people and creating a balance between profitability and the social conscience. And we do many, many other things beyond that. You probably saw this past week that we announced that we were going to hire at least 10,000 returning veterans over the next 5 years, that we were going to open up community-based stores near and around bases that we would share the profits with the veterans. So we're trying to do, I think in many ways, really reinvent the role and responsibility of a company. And I think, unfortunately, the reason we have to do that, and perhaps many others, is because government is not going to be able to do the things they once did, and government has let us down.
Are you suggesting that, or I'm asking, can every company do this, do you think? I mean, is it, and it's just that they aren't doing it?
Well, again, I can't speak for every company. What I'm here to say is that those companies that recognized early on that their product is not just based on what the customer sees, their product is also based on the sense of humanity and the relationship they have with their people over the long term, I believe those businesses will be more profitable and more successful as a result of bringing their people along with them. I also recognize that there are many small businesses in the country that are hurting as a result of the downturn in the economy and the fracturing of consumer confidence. I'm not here to say what other companies should do, but over the long term, I think we have been able to demonstrate that we've been able to build a great, enduring American company. We hire 50,000 people a year. We're building a new manufacturing facility in Georgia. We're trying to do everything we can to demonstrate that you can really build long-term value for your shareholders and at the same time link that for long-term value for your people.
Howard, thank you very much. As you might imagine, a 24/7 business like the news, we're very dependent on coffee and caffeine and Starbucks. Thank you very much, Howard.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Coming up, a college degree, even a graduate degree, and a law degree. Well, that doesn't guarantee a good job anymore. Many recent graduates taking whatever they can find just to make ends meet. Up next, we're going to catch up with some young people who have been right here on the record before. You're going to recognize them, and we're going to ask them if it is getting any better out there for them. Stay with us. This uncertain economy is tough on everyone, especially recent graduates. Even with college degrees, advanced degrees, many are still unemployed or even underemployed. We've invited back to On the Record some young job seekers who were here before. Join us from Washington, Kevin Knight and James Schindler, and here in New York, Ali Silver. Let me go first to you, Kevin. You've got a master's degree. How's the job search?
It's not really going at all, Greta. The last thing I had was a job interview back in September, but nothing since then.
How can you not? Have you sent out resumes since September? I mean, have you made a heavy effort to get a job interview?
After that one I was really hoping for. It would have been a great position, and I've applied for a few things since then that some friends have tipped me off to. But at that point, I'm just kind of taking a break for this month, recharging my batteries a bit. And there's some opportunities coming up in December that some friends have tipped me off to that I'm going to apply to when they open up. But
Ali, you were here on August 21st. You're a part-time hostess at a diner looking for full-time work. Any luck?
Yes, I actually had one job interview this past month, but it wasn't really anything in my job field, and in the end I think they went with someone who was already in their company.
Would you have liked to have had it, even if it's not exactly in your field? Would you have taken the job, accepted it, and learned and done your best?
Oh, absolutely. At this rate, I'll take anything that I can get. If it was offered to me, I would have loved to be a part of their company.
Ali, are you sending out resumes? I mean, how much pavement pounding are you doing?
Yes, every week I try to send out at least 2 resumes, but I've noticed lately that there's not as many job openings, especially during the holiday season. So I try to apply to whatever I can find.
James, you're a lawyer, and you were here on August 21st doing contract work in law firms, not hired full-time, but as a contractor. Have you been looking for a full-time work, and have you gotten it since August 21st?
Hi, yes, I've been looking. I've had 3 informational interviews since then and 1 formal interview with a government agency, except that because of the government shutdown, the interview I had was indefinitely postponed. But the real problem is for young lawyers is that there's just simply too many of us. People like me were lured with a promise of high pay when we graduated law school, and we attended these law schools with government subsidized loans, government grants, and since then there's just too many. The demand isn't there for us.
Kevin, are you getting discouraged, or are you still, hustling, trying to get that job? And why do you think you haven't gotten a full-time job?
I was up until September, but there was a trade firm here that I was really excited about. I had great recommendations for it. I went in, I did my research on the company. It was a great back and forth with the employers, but in the end, they went with somebody else. And at that point, after months, even kind of multiple years since living in DC, it was kind of the final straw for me for a little bit. There haven't been that many openings, so I just, I kind of took a little bit of a break. I picked up an extra shift because of a long-term sickness for a coworker at my part-time job. So with that money, I'm just kind of sitting tight until after the holidays and hoping that something else opens up. And
am I right that you have a master's degree and your part-time work is in a bar?
Almost, yes. I just have my competency exams left that I'll be taking this spring, and at that point I'll have my master's degree.
Allie, are you willing to move? I mean, is it a situation where you're just like you're looking for a job in a certain market, or are you willing to move someplace to find that perfect job, or even a job that'll be pretty good?
I'm absolutely open to moving wherever the job takes me. I think the goal first is to get the interview so I can definitely find a place to move to.
I'm sorry. Have any of you had these online video interviews so that so you don't have to like traipse halfway across the country and spend a fortune to get an interview? Have you done any of that online interviews with the video stuff?
I think that's more of a tech field. I haven't experienced any businesses that have started doing that yet in any areas that I've tried.
Not too many online interviews in the legal market here in Washington, D.C. for me either.
Same. I haven't had any online interviews.
Are you, Allie, would you do one? I mean, do you think that's a good idea?
Definitely, especially if, like you said, for relocating. If, say, I get an interview down in California, I'm all the way in New York. I have no way of flying over there for an interview right now. And I think we should definitely take advantage of the online interview process.
What are you looking for, Allie? What kind of job? Because I'm going to put all your jobs out there. We obviously know James wants a job as a lawyer, but what do you want to do?
I would love to go in television, writing, or producing.
Kevin?
Most likely policy would be the best fit for me, but communications, media, anything kind of related to policy associated or policy research.
James, how about you? Are you married to Washington, or are you willing to go other places to practice law?
I'm more than willing to go other places, but I'm also trying to get out of the practice of law and trying to get into lobbying or consulting as well.
Is that something that's because you've given up on law and because you haven't been able to find a full-time job and only contract, or is that because this is what you've always wanted to do?
I think I'm pretty much giving up on law at this point. I've dipped my toe into the water, and it's just not something that I've gotten super passionate about. I think now that I've lived in Washington that I'd be more interested in lobbying for something that I am passionate about.
Well, good luck to all of you, and maybe we'll get a phone call. They heard what you're looking for in terms of jobs, so good luck to all of you. And thank you all for joining us again. Up next, our panel of business owners is back. We're going to ask them for some good advice for young people and anyone else who is looking for a job. That's next. You just heard from hardworking and well-educated but underemployed young people, so now it's time to turn back to the business owners. What advice do they have for people looking for jobs? Our business panel joins us again. Steve, any advice for people looking for jobs?
It's just a lot of scut work, and when you go for an interview, always put yourself in the place of the person who's talking to you, assuming you can get in there. Why would they want to hire you? You have to know something about the company. Demonstrate that you're bringing something to the table, even if you don't have vast experience, that you've done the homework for it, and say, make clear, what are you going to bring with you that distinguishes you from the 500 other people who want that position? And then take a job. Get started, even if it isn't what you want. It's amazing what these things can lead to, but just don't sit on the sidelines. Try to get something.
All right, now let me, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think Steve's point is really important. It's a competitive market, and we're actually experimenting with some stuff where you do a video pre-screen interview where you send us a couple-minute videotape of why you want to be at Guild, and do whatever you want, say whatever you want, talk about whatever you want, but tell us why do you want to be at Guild as a pre-screen for us, which is kind of interesting. You get a sense of, have they done their homework? Do they understand what we do? have they really read the job description? Do they have experience that's relevant? The passion, I think that's so important to make sure when you come to the table that you understand what you can contribute and that you're demonstrating the passion you have for the job.
You know, I had a great time in college, loved college, but it's very expensive. And I'm wondering now, in light of the job market we're in, is college still relevant?
I'm going to say no, it's not relevant. Being in the technical industry, what I look for is people that can produce. If one of my clients has a server down and they put their college degree and rub it against that server, it's not going to help them. It's their ability to think, it's their ability to perform, and what value are they going to bring. And let's be honest, when you get out of college, yes, you've went through some classes and done some things, but it's on-the-job training, it's on-the-job experience. When you're in that situation, that's when the cream rises to the top.
Nick, college?
It's still relevant, but I think it's less relevant. And I think maybe and I have 4 kids and they're not in college yet, so I speak from the heart here.
Maybe you just don't want to pay for it.
Exactly.
Maybe you're trying to discourage it.
Trade school, no. So I think if you're going to go to a real top college, the Harvards, the Penns of the world, I think it's probably worth it. But my guidance is state school, because you still need that check in the box. You still need a degree, and there is definitely statistical differentiation from an earnings perspective, people who have college degrees versus don't. But it's the first time in my life that I'm getting a little bit skeptical when I see that we've got, $1 trillion worth of outstanding student loans, of which 40% is almost in default now. That's the next big bailout.
You know, I see these huge amounts of these tuitions are so huge. And,
ridiculous.
You know, and then people can't get jobs.
Right.
You know,
This gets some parents are finally asking, what are we getting for the sacrifice we're making?
Right.
And that's why more and more companies are doing their own testing. They don't trust the degree anymore. They don't trust the grades scores anymore. And so they do their own testing. Google is famous for it. To see, do you have the skills that they want?
Right.
They don't trust the degree. That's amazing.
But that's what I think it is. To me, it's not, is college worth it or not? I think the statistics bear that out. But the question is, what do you make of your college experience? We'd love to see more STEM education. We'd love to see more, we love candidates who come in who have taken math and who've taken science and have some technical. And I think that's the concern I have when I think about American education in general, is are we losing, are we losing that core? Because I think if there's different ways to go through college, we all know that. And I think in today's economy, those skills are just really more and more relevant. And we have to make sure our young people value those and are excited about those and are taught in practical ways.
And we have a lot of foreign students now who don't stay here any longer. They come here they used the engineering guys to come and stay. And,
absolutely.
But that's because, isn't it part of the immigration situation? They can't stay here. In a lot of ways, a lot of them would stay here. A lot would like to stay.
H-1B visas are very hard to get
absolutely,
these days.
But having run companies and having run big engineer teams of big engineers, they also are excited about their home markets. A bunch of them are, India's more interesting, more attractive. It's growing. China's more interesting, more attractive than it was 10, 15 years ago when you first came here. So part of it is about making sure we stay, is about immigration reform. Part of it is about making sure that we stay competitive in the job market. So
the other serious problem, Steve, is the people who are maybe have a job for 15 or 20 years. They find themselves at 40 years old, and now they don't have a job. That's the big one. That's a horrible tragedy.
Right.
Well, and I think this is where I think young people have an advantage. They assume they're going to go through a number of jobs, and perhaps even careers, before they retire. And one of the things I think that's going to help save us, one is the biggest educator is the employer. When you go there, you learn something new very quickly. The other thing is online. You can now you don't have to go to even college anymore. You can start to get new skills or refined skills that you might have and do something. So I don't think it's going to be, the key thing is if you get in a vibrant economy, people find ways to give people the skills they need.
Yep.
I always feel bad though for the people who, they've lost their jobs. They feel terrible about that, but then they accept a job where they are underemployed. Where they're not really not meeting their skills or their experience. It's the self-esteem. You feel, you don't feel good when you've got to go out and just accept that job.
Yeah. Well, my guidance to folks is that are older that find themselves unemployed is to sharpen up their technology skills, make sure they're up to speed. Most are nowadays. Leverage tools like LinkedIn. Make sure you work the social network as best you can. Don't be afraid to consult. It gets you back in the game. Maybe you're not earning the same fees that you would have earned in a full-time job, but you're still out in the workplace, still sharpening up your skills. You're still working your social network, physical social network versus virtual. And you feel better about yourself because you're getting up every day and going somewhere. There's even incubators here. There's about 10 of them in New York City now, where people can go and for $200 a month you can rent a virtual chair and go there and work. And Those are great places to go and mingle and network. Now, you're going to run into a lot of guys in skinny jeans carrying Macs that are in their early 20s.
Don't mess with me. Don't mess with the IT guys.
but at the end of the day, it's a great place to go.
Gentlemen and madam, thank you very much. Thank you for our entire business panel. And coming up, I have a job for you. It's actually a challenge. Find out what it is next. Okay, let's all go off the record for just a minute and allow me to be a bit sappy one day of the year. I'm usually, of course, not that sappy. In fact, I've got a sort of a rough exterior. But if you are a longtime member of our Greta Wire community, and of course you better be, you know that I really love the viewers of On the Record, and I love those who blog with us day in and day out on Greta Wire. Greta Wire is a fantastic community. We know each other. We blog about each other, sometimes saying really nice things, sometimes saying some not so nice things, because we get sort of all revved up about stuff from time to time. We're all human. But we all keep returning to Greta Wire because we have a bond. What is also fun, though, is that with our great numbers and our bond, we can do so much for others. We work together from time to time, donating to those who need help. Remember Superstorm Sandy in New York, New Jersey, or there are tornadoes in Oklahoma, cholera in Haiti, the typhoon recently in the Philippines, and yes, those pets rescued by Pet Connect Rescue. It's always fun to do something nice, and it's always fun to do it together. So here is what I want everyone to do, and that means you, and I'll do it too. I want you tonight to make a phone call to someone who might be alone or sick or even misses you, or maybe even someone you've been feuding with for a long time. Just make that call this Thanksgiving Day and say hello. You probably actually have been meaning to make this call and have put it off. So do it now. And then, of course, go to GretaWire.com and report in that you did it. I'll do it too. Happy Thanksgiving. It's always nice to be here. And thank you for being with us for this On the Record special, Open for Business. Go to GretaWire.com right now, of course, after you make that phone call. But go to GretaWire.com also because we want to know what you think about business in America. If you have any ideas or you know of any jobs for young Americans or just have solutions to jumpstart business in America, then share it with the Greta Wire community.